Hey keyboard nerds! Today we're going to talk about master classes, both from the viewpoint of somebody that has taken a lot of master classes and also somebody that teaches them. Here we go. So, master classes. They're quite a bit different from taking regular lessons. When you think about traditional lessons, you're going to somebody for piano lessons, or it might be organ lessons, and they're kind of putting you through their system, their series of books that they follow, or their program, so to speak. I like to think of master classes as an a la carte type lesson where you get to choose. You get to pick your poison. You get to choose exactly what it is that you want to work on as a player. So you go to an expert and you go, this is what I'm working on. Let's take down the following concepts. And it really allows you to get razor focused on what it is that you want to achieve. Obviously, in today's world, we have many online courses. I have one myself, and there's lots of people that do. And that's a great way to learn off YouTube and such. But sometimes when you have the opportunity to plug in with a teacher one-on-one for a 1-hour session via Zoom or whatever it may be, you can really focus on the things that you want to specifically work on, things for your repertoire that you're playing with your band, or specific goals that you just have as a player. So it really allows you to get in there and filter down to exactly what you want to learn. Masterclasses are awesome. So one of the biggest barriers to taking a masterclass is insecurity. I've dealt with this a lot myself. When you're going to somebody that you revere and you really respect, and you're going to them to take a lesson, it is scary, because you're really having to put yourself out there. And of course, the first thing they're going to do is, well, what do you want to work on? Well, why don't you play something for me? And that's always terrifying, especially when you're playing for sometimes your heroes. But honestly, masterclasses for me have been one of the biggest unlocking of mysteries ever. Like, you go into them and you're kind of nervous. And typically when I'm leaving a good masterclass, I'm like, I can't believe what that person just showed me. Like, years of wisdom just unlocked for you in minutes. So valuable. It's interesting. A lot of times you might see a player that's teacher and you're like, well, I think I'm a better player than them, or I think technically I'm a better player than them, but sometimes they might have this one thing that you can learn from them that is so special that will become part of your playing forever. And I always think of these lessons, and I've taken a lot of them, it's almost like you're sticking all of this information in a blender, and at the end of it you're getting your own personal style of playing, and it's sort of influenced by all of these great players. So it's a beautiful way of sharing. And the thing that you'll find, I feel, is that a lot of amazing players, they want to share. A lot of times they're older, they've been doing this for a long time, and as part of their legacy, they want to share. They want to show you this stuff, and the stuff that they have to show you is so, so valuable. I often get emails from people about master classes. Interestingly enough, with my online course, I have something called a lifetime membership where you can buy the course for life. And if you do, one of the perks is that you get a free masterclass for 1 hour with me. And what's interesting to me about this is that 90% of the students that buy lifetime memberships never take the masterclass, which is kind of why I wanted to do this video, because we're trying to figure out why that is. And so I've just point blank asked a lot of these students, why is it that you don't want to take a masterclass? I mean, we can, work on whatever you want. And they often say, well, I'm not ready, or if I just practiced for a little longer, or give me a year to roll with the course, and then I'll get back to you when I've got some questions about the course. That's actually not really what a masterclass is about. It's more about, let's take a student. Let's say that he or she plays in a cover band. I like to get into that set list and go, okay, what songs exactly are you working on? And then we go, okay, and I'll build lessons within the material that they're actually using in their band, because there's nothing I love more than application. You could take skills and apply them to your gig. That's what we're looking for. That's what master classes are all about. And I know when I'm taking master classes, I'll often have questions like, well, in my band, in this one particular song, over this particular set of chord changes, I'm not feeling like I can improvise freely. And the teacher will go, well, here's 20 ways that you can think about improvising over those chord changes, and it will be ways that I've never thought of before. My brain just can't even conceive of the angles that they're able to come at this problem from. It just makes you a better player. So yeah, it's really interesting, and I wish more people would take me up on the free master class, because I think that they could get so much out of it. But I am guilty of this too, and oftentimes when I'm taking master classes off great players, there's an insane amount of practice that happens in the 48 hours leading up to that lesson. That's a good thing though, in a way, because it also holds you accountable. You take a master class every month or every 2 months, and then when you come back around to that, you think about, well, what are the things that we were talking about last time? Oh, I better go work on those things, and actually you'll become a better player and develop your skills so much more just having that deadline of that master class. So I've been teaching for a long time. I'm not a young man anymore, but I started teaching when I was about 15 or 16. I think I had my first professional teaching job when I was 18. So I love teaching. I've been teaching a really long time. I come from a family of music teachers. I owned a music school with about 700 students in it. And it's just something that I've always done. I've always been really, really passionate about it. And I still look forward to teaching to this day. I've always asked myself, what am I more passionate about, playing or teaching? And I can't really decide. I love them both equally. I love to share music. One of my mentors once said to me that if you don't share and give back, the gods of music will take it away from you. And I always took that to heart, and I've always tried to do that and just share freely, and I just love it. I made the course because I wanted to take everything that I've ever learned in my 30 years as a professional musician and brain dump it in one place for everybody to have access to. When I was growing up, there was no YouTube, there was no internet to learn. You had to go to the bars and watch guys play, and you had to sit behind them, and what drawbar setting are they using on the organ, or what's that riff they're playing on the piano, or you had to ask people, could you please show me that thing? We live in an age now where you can learn online or you can learn off YouTube, and it saves so much time, and your journey from point A to point B and learning is so much faster. So I think that making the course is really, I hope, will save musicians a lot of time. I wish that I would have had this when I was younger. I have had a lot of great mentors. I've been so lucky in my career to have access to some incredible mentors that have saved me a lot of time and helped me get better quickly. One of my first mentors was a lady named Louise Rose, who's a fantastic jazz piano player from British Columbia, and she used to play with Aretha Franklin, and she was a Raylette with Ray Charles, and she taught me my first blues scale and a 12-bar blues when all I knew how to do was play classical music. In 1 hour, she literally changed my life and showed me how you could improvise. And you hear me say it in my course, whatever you play works. That was one of her lines. Whatever you play on this works. It all sounds good. And it really opened the door to blues for me, which has been a huge part of my career. Another huge mentor for me was Robbie King, who was a Hammond organ session player, also from British Columbia. Spent a lot of time at Motown Records playing on records down there, and also played on a lot of the Bryan Adams stuff. Brilliant Hammond player. Took lessons from him over a period of years, and kind of a funny story, when I first met Robbie, He came to one of my gigs where I was playing a Hammond in Kelowna, BC. I'll never forget it. I look over and there's this guy standing on the riser beside me, and he looks at me and he goes, as I'm playing, goes, "Here, you've been looking for me." And I've been trying to get lessons from him. And he stood beside me on the organ. I was about 18 years old, and he was just like, "What are you doing? What are you doing with your left hand? You're not a bass player. You can't be playing all these notes down there. That's a bass player's job." He goes, "What do you think all this stuff is for? These are drawbars. You're supposed to be using them and play like a horn player and play parts. Don't just play gibberish." And I learned so much from him. He was the guy that taught me in a band the role of your left hand when playing the B3, which is, when you see a lot of piano players, when they go to the B3, they're kind of got their hand down there and they're just playing like this. And he was like, "No, grab drawbars, Leslie switches, swells, smears, rhythm." He was the guy that really instilled using that as a tool the entire time that you're playing. So an amazing mentor for me. I can't go without mentioning Tony Monaco, who's a fantastic jazz organ player, probably, in my opinion, one of the best jazz organ players on the planet. Taken a lot of master classes off Tony, and although I don't consider myself to be a jazz organ player, I've learned so much from him that I've been able to integrate into the bands that I play with and the recording sessions that I play on. I can't even describe how much he's changed my playing and really changed my life. He's just a beautiful guy. Another mentor I've had is Brian Charette, who's from New York City. If you have not checked out this book by Brian, which is 101 Hammond B3 Tips, the amount of gold in this book, just if you're a B3 player, just get it. It's worth every penny. Another guy that I got to spend a lot of time with, as he would often rent my B3 here in Alberta, was Joey DeFrancesco. He showed me a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, he's passed. We miss him. But there is this book that he wrote, which has tons and tons of good stuff in it. So he was a big source of inspiration for me as well. And there's many more on the list of mentors that I've had over the years. I've been really lucky with people that have shared freely. But having said that, I also seek them out. I'm always trying to find somebody to learn from. And even when I'm watching YouTube, I recently found a piano player in New Orleans, Big Joe Kennedy. Believe that's his name. Great piano player. I took a lesson off him just to learn some of that New Orleans style of piano that he does, which I thought was really, really valuable. And I'm always looking at guys, and I'll approach them and go, "Do you mind if I take a lesson with you?" And I've learned a lot of things, and it saved me a lot of time. So highly recommend the master classes. So master classes are really important because you're just kind of grabbing bits of information from all of these great players, and it's just like throwing them in a recipe, and that helps you develop your own individual style, which is so important in music, to do your own thing. And inside of my course, I include a lot of the stuff that I've learned from people along the way. And my hope is that you will be able to take some of these things too and add it to your arsenal of licks and tricks, and that will become a piece of your playing as well. And also my own style, I want it out there. I want to share these things. I have some guys that are like, "Hey man, I heard this guy playing this lick and it sounded a lot like one of yours," and I'm like, "Perfect. That's great. I love that." I've been ripping off licks for years. I always try to find a way to spin them to make them my own or put my own stamp on them, but that's part of it, right? It's part of you learn somebody else's thing or somebody else's vocabulary, you bring it in and you make it your own. That's all part of creativity. If I could have a master class with anyone, Chester Thompson from the original Tower of Power, of course, would be amazing. Greg Rowley, the original Santana keyboard player, I just love him. Huge influence on me. And of course, if we could just do whatever we wanted and I could go back in time, Jimmy Smith would be really, really cool. So there you go. There's a few examples. If you can make that happen for me, that'd be great. Thanks. So if you're on the fence about taking master classes, whether it's for Hammond organ, piano, guitar, golf, mechanics, whatever, I encourage you to do so. Don't be insecure about it. Try to get rid of that fear. Go head first, fearlessly into these situations to learn. It's definitely how I've elevated my playing way, way faster. So don't be afraid to seek out the expert. And if you're on the fence about taking the Universal Keys course, don't be afraid. Or if you're on the fence about taking a master class with me, let's do it. We're in this together. I'm here for you. See you soon.